Hey there, it's so nice to have you here today. I'm Till, one of the co-founders of Tiny Easy, and I'm excited to show you the 3D tiny house designer business today. When you're running a tiny house business, you usually offer some or all of the following design and build solutions. You offer fully custom designs and have a design process to create a unique tiny house for a customer. This could be a standalone design service or one that you include with build projects. Or you have a range of standard designs. You then offer modifications to these standard designs to tailor the project to the customer. And the last one is that you design a model once and then build the same spec build over and over again with only little modifications. Over the years, I have talked to hundreds of tiny house builders, and if they offer any of these solutions, at some point they all discover a problem. Usually this problem arises very early when starting out with a business, and as the business grows, this problem usually gets worse and worse until they're finally confronted. There are a few symptoms that you also have this problem. So one symptom is you're currently drawing and designing your tiny homes and are spending frustratingly many hours on every project. Every alteration and revision feels like a chore. And you're trying to use a design software you thought might work, or even use pen and paper, causing every design decision to require workarounds. Another symptom is you're working with a designer or a draftsperson, creating an endless communication loop between you, the client, and the draftsperson. It takes time to get changes done, and by the time the revisions are finished, the client has already changed their mind a few times. You have endless communication with your build team, as everyone has a different idea of how the project should be built and where things go. Probably there are multiple versions of the project and nobody is sure which one is the right one. The culprit that's causing so much pain is that the tools that they're using might have been fine for a few early projects, but they're just not cutting it anymore. Usually CAD programs like SketchUp, Chief Architect, Revit, or AutoCAD, or other home design tools like Home Planner or Home by Me were not made for the demands and workflows of the tiny house industry. They are great tools, but they are generalized to work for the wider, regular-sized house market, and you quickly run into limitations, repetitive tasks, and time-consuming workarounds that slow down your entire production process. Additionally, these tools usually expect you to have years of training in the software until you're able to efficiently use it. Sometimes even sketched hand drawings on grid paper were a better solution to get started, but now none of these solutions are feasible any longer. The detrimental side effects that these tools create are that any design work, from small adjustments to full custom designs, are very time consuming, taking up a huge chunk of your project timeline. This takes up many internal resources due to the time spent and delays projects significantly until they go into production. Any design work can also become a loss leader in the business as it's a time and resource hungry process. Internal project documentation, like plans and material lists, can be inaccurate or insufficient, and this slows down projects due to the need for constant back and forth between the team and also causes costly errors in the workshop. Clients don't understand what end products they will be getting and are annoyed by the lengthy process, causing confusion, unneeded back and forth, and worst of all, lost projects due to the lost confidence. So maybe this all sounds familiar, but maybe you're also thinking, we've done this thing for a long time now, so why change? But are you and your team working at your full potential at the moment? Or are they happy with the current situation? If this resonates with you, maybe it's time to consider a different approach. 3D Tiny House Designer Business is a powerful but simple design software purpose-built for the tiny house industry that solves many of these problems. It helps you and your team become much more efficient and effective. Instead of mastering a difficult CAD program, 3D Tiny House Designer is a visual 3D drag and drop system that empowers you to craft a well thought out tiny house design in just a few steps that you and your clients will love. And instead of painstakingly having to draft 2D floor plans, elevations, sections, joinery schedules, electrical, plumbing, and cabinetry plans, the 3D Tiny House Designer becomes your on-demand draftsperson and generates a full sophisticated PDF plan set of usually 50 plus pages with a click of a button. This way you can go back to what you do best, which is designing and building stunning tiny homes for your clients. So who are we? Tiny Easy is not some big corporation that wants to sell you software whether it's a good fit or not. We are a team of tiny house enthusiasts that want to make designing tiny homes fun and easy. My two co-founders, Lauren and Eugene, have been in the tiny house industry for 7 years. They actually started out helping build tiny homes with a popular tiny house builder here in West Auckland and crafted the construction plans for the build team. And yes, they also now use the 3D Tiny House Designer. Lauren and Eugene now live and work from their own self-built and designed tiny house. Personally, I'm a trained architectural designer and I'm fascinated by tiny homes and the incredible lifestyle they unlock for people. 4 years ago, we came together to start Tiny Easy, to solve the problems we have seen everyone have in the industry, which is to easily design tiny homes for both tiny house building businesses and DIYers. So we only want you to use 3D Tiny House Designer Business once you're absolutely positive that it will provide the value you expect, and it makes designing your tiny homes easy for you. Hopefully you have gotten a great high-level view of why the 3D Tiny House Designer will help you reinvent your design and build process. So thank you for sticking around so far, and I'm hoping you're just as excited to see 3D Tiny House Designer as I am to show it to you. I really think it could be a game changer for you and your team. Now let's get ready for a guided tour of the software. While I show you the 3D Tiny House Designer, I will cover 6 key concepts. The first one is how the visual 3D interface will speed up your workflow and wow your clients. The second one is how you can design your tiny homes quickly with our purpose-built 3D drag-and-drop design tools to save 20 to 30 work hours per project. The third one is speeding up your next personalized design project by setting up a library of your own preset designs in the software. The fourth one is that you can generate detailed plans with a click that you, your team, manufacturers, and subcontractors can easily understand. The fifth one is generating material estimations to speed up your quoting, pricing, and ordering process. And the sixth one is creating realistic renders with a click without becoming a render artist to market your new staple designs and wow your clients. Alright, let's get started with the walkthrough. To jump right into it, I'm going to load one of my designs that I've already completed beforehand. And to get started, I will show you how you can use the software to design visually and easily. And what you'll see when you load up the 3D Tiny House Designer for the first time is you will see a full 3D interface. And the great thing about it is that when you're using the software to put together your tiny house design, everything is in 3D, so it's easy to understand what your final tiny house will look like. So technically, you're building your tiny house in a virtual space in 3D, and then you will be building it afterwards off the plans that this software generates. And another fantastic side effect is that when you're designing your tiny home, you can also use the software to communicate with your client. So a great practice is when you're using the software is that you either have a workstation set up in your office or you're doing virtual one-on-one calls with your clients to show them exactly what their future tiny house will look like. And in the end, this is a great wow factor for the client as they understand what it is that they're getting, and they can easily visualize all of the parts in the tiny house. So for example, you could turn off the walls and show them the interior of the tiny house and go into detail into every single room that you have designed for them. So instead of communicating plans with them and showing them 2D images or roughly hand-drawn sketches, they directly understand what they will be getting and there will be less confusion. If you work that way, you will decrease the time it takes for you to close a client as they understand what it is that they're getting in the future. Let's get into the next part. The 3D Tiny House Designer is purpose-built for the tiny house industry. So unlike other CAD programs, what you will see is that we have created purpose-built tools that only make sense for the tiny home and small home industry. To get started, I will give you a very quick overview of the tools that we have in the software. So what you'll see here on the left side, this is our toolbar, and we have exterior, interior, and technical tools. So basically, you're just really working yourself through the different categories until you're done with designing your tiny house. For this example here, I will be modifying one of my preset designs. So to apply this to your use case, take it as if you have already designed some of your staple designs and now you're making modifications for a client to customize it towards their needs to create a tailored project for them. So for example, what you will see is that they might want to change the size of the tiny house. All you would have to do is you go into the foundation and then you would change the size of the tiny house. Of course, this works for both metric and imperial system. And now once you've changed the size, you will see the entire exterior update. And then what you can do to make some changes, for example, to make some more room, I've added the size to both sides. I'll just quickly go in and move the interior back up a little bit by just 1 foot, and now all of a sudden we can start modifying our interior. So I'm just going to bring it back to what it was before so I can keep designing. The tools that you will see in here is that they're incredibly detailed towards the tiny house industry. So for example, we have the foundation tool, which has different options of trailers. So for example, you have the flat deck trailer, a fender or bumper pull trailer, gooseneck trailers, or you have a proper foundation that you would be a concrete foundation or a pile foundation, or you have a structural floor in case your tiny house is a design that's built in a factory and then put on a foundation somewhere else. So I'm just going to put it back to the fender trader, and you can go into the detail of changing how many axles you have, how big your fender is, and all that kind of stuff. So you can directly mirror the specifications of your trader manufacturer. To then get into the next part, the shell, what you will see here is you can then change the shape of your tiny house, and rather than just having a flat design like this, you can actually choose from different preset shell shapes. So for example, overhangs, bump outs, and all of that kind of stuff. So you can create different shell shapes that your client might want. And the same thing goes with the roof. Rather than just having a simple gable roof like that and staying with the preset that you already have, you can fully define your roof style. So at the moment I have a gable roof here. I'll just quickly delete the scalars to give you a quick example of what that would look like once you have changed the roof. So at the moment we've got a gable roof here. We can just go in and put in the different roof pitches like that. We can choose from different roof styles, and we can also rotate our roof like that, so you can create different angles and roof shapes altogether. Or you can create more difficult compound roofs, so you can have a monoslope or shed roof on one side and then a gable roof on the other side. So once you understand how all of the tools work, you can virtually design any kind of tiny house that you can think of. So I'll just change it back to a monoslope roof and just leave it at that. And then another part that you will be running into a lot, especially if you have designed a staple design, clients might want to change the exterior window and door arrangement. And what you would do to, let's say, add a window or a door, you would go into the window library, grab a preset window, pop it onto the facade like that, and then you can quickly change the size of the window like that, and potentially even change the window arrangement. So we can add some panels to it and then change around where the window is orientated, change the panel size. So you can go into a bunch of different details to make sure that the client gets exactly what they want. I'm just going to quickly get rid of this window like that. And of course you can also edit existing windows by just clicking on it and then changing the size that way as well. So it's a fairly intuitive drag and drop system. And you can also add decks to it. I don't have to go into this right now, but you can design the exterior space as well. You can add different material colors on every facade by just adding material accents like that. So they're basically stickers that you can add to the facade that show a change in cladding or siding, which is incredibly visual, so the client understands exactly where this material will go and how big that material change will be as well. And another thing when you're still changing the exterior, of course, are the materials. Changing materials is super easy in the software. All you would have to do is you would click on the object that you want to change, click on the material, and then you would choose from a variety of preset materials. And we have a huge variety of metal claddings, timber claddings, and other materials that you might need to design your tiny house. So I'm just going to grab, what do I want to grab? Maybe we'll do tray cladding on this end in a green like that. And now you have already changed the cladding on this side. And the same thing, of course, goes with, let's say, the doors and windows. So let's say if we want to change all of the doors and windows to a black, we'll just say, yep, we want to do that here as well. And I'll just quickly make sure that this goes back to the default. So this is just a corrugated cladding like that. So that's how you would quickly change the exterior. And the same thing goes with the interior. So what you'll see here is we have, of course, built tools that you would only find really that you would require for tiny homes. So for example, you can place loft panels like that. Of course, I've already placed loft panels beforehand here. And then if you're placing an object, let's say on top of the loft, I'm just going to quickly grab a cabinet, or let's say we'll just place a chair here on top. The software automatically understands, oh, okay, you're placing on a loft, so the chair will go on top of the loft here. And then once you've placed it, you can toggle your lofts on and off. So kind of it's like preset layers that you would have in the software that make sense specifically for tiny homes, so it can speed up your workflow. I'm just going to get rid of this chair, of course. This doesn't really make sense up on top there. And what I was just showing you before, I was already getting into that a little bit. We have a sophisticated interior library for both cabinets and furniture, so you can design any interior of your tiny house. So I'm just going to quickly get rid of these cabinets here to just show you how you would quickly create a kitchen island using our cabinetry tools. So if you would get started with a cabinetry design, you would go into the cabinetry menu, and what you'll see here is a big library of different preset categories of cabinets. And what we've done is we've pre-designed a bunch of different cabinets to industry standards. So for example, a cabinet would be 2 by 2 feet and 3 feet tall, or 60 by 60 centimeters and 90 centimeters tall. And that just depends on what system you would pick. And all you would have to do is you would grab a cabinet. So let's say we'll start with a drawer cabinet here, like that. And we'll place it into the interior. And now we can go in and edit my preset. So rather than just dragging in a dumb 3D model, you can actually change everything about it because we have developed a cabinetry system that can go into a lot of detail. So what you'll see here on the right is we have a bunch of different settings to just change the width, depth and height. So let's say we'll just make this 3 feet wide like that to get started. And now we would want to change the countertop to be 2 inches thick like that. And we might want to add an overhang in the back here. So we'll add an overhang that is 1 foot long like that, so it has a little bit of seating. And now we can go into even more detail. We don't want to add any end panels here, of course, because this is still in the middle of this cabinetry arrangement. But let's say we don't actually want to have 3 cabinetry drawers here, but we want to change this into an open shelf cabinet that only has 2 compartments. So what you can do, you can go into your segments and say, okay, I would like to have 2 segments, please. Both of them will be the same size, and instead of having a drawer in the front here for this segment, I would like to have an open shelf like that. And for the second segment, I will want to do the same thing. So now all of a sudden we have an open shelf cabinet. So the workflow in the 3D Tiny House Designer is that you grab a preset that is close to what you want, and then you would make changes to it to customize it to the exact use case of what you would want to have in that interior space. And that's super important because tiny homes are very specific and require a specific design that works for that size tiny house and specifically for the person that lives in it. To just finish up this kitchen island, I'm going to go in and grab a sink like that. I'll just quickly rotate that around and I'll accurately place it using my dimension move tool here. So I'll just say I would like to not have a gap in between here, and then we'll move it over a little bit to align it. And then we'll add a 2-inch countertop to match, and we'll add an overhang that's also 1 foot long. So what you'll see, you can very quickly make changes to an interior by just dragging in a couple of objects, deleting objects, moving things around. So your workflow, rather than having to go in and change plans and draw different dimensions, all you would have to do, you would technically just have to redesign in 3D and make sure that the space works in 3D, and then the software does all of the drafting for you. There we go. So let's have a look at the technical side of things. So of course, once you have designed your tiny house in 3D, you want to make sure that you can add the additional detail that you might want to actually be able to build it. So for example, you would want to add in your electrical and your plumbing. So I would grab, let's say to get started with my electrical, I'm just going to grab a switch here, and let's say we want to place it next to my entrance door here. And the way that you place electrical items in the 3D Tiny House Designer, it kind of works like as if you were standing in the tiny house, and then you would kind of choose where you want to have your electrical items. So you would just look at the spot, and then you would drag and drop it into the place where you want it. So it's much more visual than if you would be putting together a 2D plan and you would drag icons and circuits and all that kind of stuff. So it's a little bit more of a straightforward process. And the same thing goes with sockets. So I'll just go into my sockets over here like that, because we want to have an outlet over here, and we also want an outlet here behind my oven. So I'm just going to quickly disable my cabinets, put an outlet down here, and then I'll just turn my cabinets back on. So now we can also plug that in. And the same thing works with lights, of course, as well. So I'm just going to go back into my lights category here, and then I will just turn on my walls like that, and then I'll just look into the ceiling and I'll grab a downlight and I'll place it up here. There we go. I'll copy that one over here, and then I'll maybe move it over by, oops, not by 1 foot, but maybe we'll want to have it 2 feet away from here. There we go. And now we have placed my lights as well. So it's a very visual process, and you very quickly are able to put together an electrical design by just dragging and dropping objects. And when it comes to circuits, you can also add circuits to your electrical design. So all you would have to do, let's say I want to grab this switch here and I want to grab this onto circuit 2 here. I will just make a quick note that this will be on circuit 2. I'll turn off my cabinet here in a second as well, and I'll put this one onto circuit 2 as well. There we go, perfect. And then these lights here will go into circuit 1. There we go. Come on. There we go. This one will be circuit 1, and this one here will be circuit 1 as well. Perfect. So now we have added my circuits in as well. Alright, so I'll just go in and turn my cabinets back on, and we can of course also design the plumbing layout in the 3D Tiny House Designer. And to do that, you would grab a plumbing connection to get started. So I'm just going to show you a very basic plumbing layout with, let's say, the vanity over here. So I'll just quickly turn my walls back off. And so I will just grab a plumbing connection and place it at the back of the vanity, like that. And let's say we want to route a plumbing connection from here through the walls all the way to this side over here. There we go. We'll just move it back a bit. Perfect. Like that. And we want it to come around the corner. And then we want to have a hot water cylinder, or not a hot water cylinder, but an instantaneous hot water heater here. So we'll just create another plumbing connection. We'll say that this is hot and cold. Then we will have a hot and cold connection here as well. And then we also want to make sure that we can route our plumbing through the cabinet here to that sink. So we'll actually create a split here in the middle. And we'll add this maybe over here like that. And then we will add that in as well. And we'll just run this through. And we'll create a plumbing connection. So one thing, of course, that we see now is that we have a plumbing connection here that doesn't really make sense because it's currently running through our open cabinet. So one thing to consider is then that you change the cabinet back to something that would cover that pipe as well. There we go. And now all we have to do, we update the plumbing connections, and now we have 3D pipes. Of course, if you would go into more detail, you would have a more sophisticated drawing with more plumbing connections, but this is a good way to just show you how you would drag plumbing connections and choose the different connection types to then generate your plumbing. Alright, so that's how the tools work in the 3D Tiny House Designer. And to show you now how you can turn this 3D model into a full set of plans, I'm just going to go in and click the Generate Plans button. And what you'll see here is you'll see a bunch of different plan settings come up. So for example, you can toggle to show your dimensions, your labels, your icons, your room tags, and all that kind of stuff on your plans. This is mainly if you want to create a different kind of look on your plan set. So if you only want to show the layout without any dimensions, I would probably turn everything off, but just for the sake of demonstration, I'm going to leave everything on. And I'm going to pick a legal paper size to have a little bit more space. And I'm going to choose to leave all of the different plans that this software exports on as well. So we'll export a full sophisticated plan set. And then I'm going to go and generate my plans. And what the software does, instead of you having to draft every plan one by one, so you would put down your title block, you would choose your views, your scale, and then once you've placed your view, you would need to dimension and label everything. We've basically trained the software to do all of this work for you. So it goes through the design and analyzes the 3D model and then draws a plan set that you would need to build any tiny house. And so what you'll see, it's already finished the work now. And in the time of me clicking the button and explaining how it works, it has generated around 50 pages that you would then be able to use to build off, quote off, and communicate with your manufacturers. And I'm just going to quickly jump in to show you what pages this software has created. There we go. So now this is the exported plan set, and what you'll see here, it starts off with some isometrics, and basically the isometrics and later on the perspectives as well are mainly there to show how the tiny house looks like in 3D, so your build team and client can understand, okay, this is what it looks like. I don't have to understand how the plans work, of course. And then we have the floor plans that show you how the tiny house layout works and where everything goes. And what you'll see here, it breaks the tiny house down. It shows all of the different cabinets, the windows and the doors, and it dimensions everything automatically as well. So it points out that we've got a 4-inch wall here, then we've got a 12'10" gap in between until the next interior wall, and so on. So every single dimension has its own layer. So for example, the cabinets have its own layer, the exterior walls have their own layers, and then the interior walls have their own layer as well. So that way every single dimension line has a meaning, and it's easy to understand where everything goes rather than you having to dig through every single dimension and understand where something is. And then we have the mezzanine plan or the loft plan here, which just shows, well, the loft. And then we've got the roof plan here. Of course, this is a very simple design, so we don't have much to this roof plan at the moment. And then we have the shell plans, and basically it just gets rid of all of your cabinetry and furniture, so you can understand exactly where the rooms are and how big they are. So this is especially helpful when you're doing your framing and your rough-in. And then we've got the same for the mezzanine, and then we have the elevations, just showing basically the side view of what the tiny house looks like from each side, and how big the doors and windows are and where these go. And then we've got, of course, a view from every side like that. There we go. We've got some window markers as well, calling out which one is which window as well. And then we've got the sections, which just cuts through the tiny house and shows you where the walls go, how tall the rooms are, how thick the loft panels are, how much head clearance do you have. And then we've got a section from every side. And then we've got shell sections as well, which is the same thing as shell floor plans, but only in the section format, so you can understand exactly where all of the interior walls and lofts go. Then we've got the joinery schedule, and the joinery schedule just breaks down all of the different doors, windows, and skylights that you have in your project and puts them on a list. And you can understand how big they are, how many panels they have, what's the opening direction. I haven't defined the opening direction in my project yet here, of course. And you can go into even further detail to fully specify what the window will be in the end. So the jamb finish, the glass finish, what color the frame will have, what the wall thickness is that the window or door is sitting in, the U value it has, the exact brand it will be, if it is an egress window for certification later on. You can add custom notes and also even make a note if the window is a repurposed window, so that one doesn't actually have to be remanufactured if you're working with a mix of repurposed and new windows as well. Then we have the electrical plan, and of course I've only placed a couple of items here for now, so this is fairly basic, but what you will see here is that, for example, this is the outlet that I've placed over the counter. This is the double switch that controls the lights. Then we've got the outlet here next to the oven. We've got the range hood over the oven. And then in the loft plan or ceiling plan, we've got the downlights here that I've placed as well. And one nice thing about the electrical plan is it actually gives you a full breakdown of all of the electrical objects that you've placed. So it shows you exactly how much you need to order, and the electrician knows what they need to bring around. And each electrical object also has a call out for what height exactly it is installed at. So it's easy to understand, for example, if the outlet is above the counter or below the counter. So it's easier for the communication with the electrician who will come on site. And when it comes to the circuits, it is following a fairly simple system. So what you'll see here is we have automatically generated a name for the double switch or the downlight here. So all of the double switch and downlights here are on circuit 1, like that. And then we've got the other outlets here, which are on circuit 2. So basically you just have a breakdown of all of the different outlets and switches and other electrical items and what circuit they are on as well. And then we've got the plumbing plan, which breaks down the plumbing layout that we have just designed in 3D. And what you'll see here, it shows an isometric with the grayed out design behind, and then you have a detailed breakdown of where exactly those plumbing lines go. Of course, I've just very quickly roughed in the plumbing line. Of course, they wouldn't be able to go through the window, so you would have to draw them around like that. But this gives you a very good idea of how it would look like in 3D and what kind of schedule you can expect. And we have the plumbing layout or schedule from different sides, so it's easier to understand where it goes in relation to the 3D space. So you'll see how the plumbing connects to my vanity here and how it goes into the kitchen island over here as well. There we go, and now we've got the cabinetry plans here, and what you'll see here is the kitchen island, of course, that we have just designed in 3D, and you'll see a breakdown of the cabinetry groups just with an isometric to get started. Then you have the plans showing the carcass dimensions, and then we have the elevations of every side, so you can understand exactly how big the cabinets are that you will need to be building. And then we've got a breakdown of all of the other cabinets, of course, that are in the tiny house as well. So you end up with quite a big plan set to show you exactly how big the cabinets are and what kind of cabinets you will need to be building. There we go. So that is the plan set that you would generate. And so overall, by being able to generate a plan set like this, you will save probably 20 to 30 hours per project, just simply because you cut out a lot of repetitive drafting work, and especially when you are making revisions to a project, rather than having to go in and change the plans in 2D, you can actually just go into the 3D model, make the changes with a few clicks, and then re-export an entire plan set, which just saves so much time in the long run. Another huge time saver is that rather than just being able to generate plans with the software, you can actually estimate the most important materials of this tiny house, so you can understand the quantities that you will need to build it, as well as then be able to quote of it as well. And all you would need to do is you would go into export here and you would click on the takeoff button and you would just confirm your takeoff like that. And then what the software does, it goes through, just like the plan generation, it goes through the design and analyzes all of the different objects and materials that you have placed, and it creates a breakdown. Alright, there we go. So I've just imported my spreadsheet into Google Sheets. Of course, the export comes natively in Excel, so if you want to use Excel, you can use that just as well. But when you get started, you will see that the takeoff tool has automatically broken down the tiny house into different categories. So to get started, what you see here is the trailer, and it just breaks down how big the trailer is. And then you've got the flooring, cladding, roofing, and so on. And what's interesting about the tool is that it automatically estimates the quantities for every category. So for example, it shows me that at the moment I would need 200.44 square feet of ground flooring for this tiny house, and the loft will have a total of 65 square feet of flooring. And rather than just having the estimations, you can actually go in and add in your own calculations. So for example, by standard, I would say, let's say we will have 15% of wastage from our ground flooring. It will then automatically calculate the total, including the wastage. And then let's say, just for an example, my flooring will cost $10 per square foot. And now it shows me that, well, the flooring on the ground floor will cost me $2,305.06. And then I can go through and do the same thing with the loft here. So let's say we would need 15% wastage here, like that. But my loft flooring will be a little bit cheaper because it's carpet, for example. Let's say it's going to be $80 per square foot, and now all of a sudden it shows me that I will only need $601 for my loft flooring, like that. And now we can do the same thing with my cladding, my roofing, and all of the other categories as well. So it gives you a really good starting point to understand what kind of quantities you will need to then be able to build and quote your tiny house. And the spreadsheet has categories for all of the most important items that you will have, even the ones that we can't automatically calculate yet, like your flashing and your framing here, for example. But you can use this spreadsheet as your template to then do your own quote and takeoff in. So you can put in your own calculations to add in that additional information to make sure that you can fully quote your tiny house. So we've got the framing here, we've got the joinery calculated here already as well, and it just breaks down all of the doors and windows we have with the different sizes. Then we've got the interior components, which are the interior walls. Basically, it's a breakdown of all of the interior lining you will need. And then we've got a placeholder for paint and tiling. It calculates the insulation square footage. Then we've got a placeholder for building wrap or sheathing. And then we've got all of the cabinets that are in the tiny house in here. The appliances, the hardware, even it goes down into the detail of, let's say, how many cabinet handles you need or drawer rails you will need, because of course every cabinet will need those as well, and you will need to price them. And then we've got any items in the bathroom, so let's say the toilet or the shower. Then we've got all of the electrical components that I've just placed before, and of course this will be a little bit more detailed once we've placed all of the electrical items. Any other components, a placeholder for your plumbing, and then your own placeholder for calculating your labor, for just general labor, cladding, roofing, framing, depends on what you want to outsource, as well as any commission certifications and so on, to be able to make sure that you can really include everything in here. And the great thing about it being in a spreadsheet, if you have any other categories or components that we haven't included yet, you can just add those in as well and just add in your own lines. And of course, once you are finished with your estimations, you will see the subtotal come up here. You can add in your contingencies and your margin and then your tax percentage, and in the end you will see the finished cost for your tiny house. So this should be 50%. There we go. So overall, it's a huge time saver to help you get started with your quoting and takeoff process. Last but not least, you can also create realistic images with a 3D tiny house designer. So of course, having the 3D view that I've just shown you before is incredibly helpful to communicate your design to your client and your build team. But if you want to go to the extra level to actually show what this tiny house would look like in a real life setting to, for example, wow your client, or market a new staple design that you would want to put up on your website or socials, you can create renders as well. So I will just go in and click on the render button here. And at the moment I'm on a trial for my renders, so I've got 5 free trial renders now. And all I would have to do is I would need to change the height of my sun as well as the direction of my sun. I'm just going to put the sun behind my camera here for now. And all I would have to do is I would then click the render button. There we go. So now all it does is the software sends the render that you want to create to our server, and it processes the render, puts the tiny house into a realistic landscape with trees, grass, and the sky, and it renders a 4K high resolution image for you. So rather than you having to have an expensive PC that would need to do all of those calculations, the server does all of the heavy lifting for you, and all you have to do is click the button and wait until the render is done. And I'll show you what it looks like once the render is complete. There we go. So the render is complete and this pop-up has come up here, so I can now download my render, and I'll just click on that now. And there we go. So that's the render that it has created. So what you will see here is you've got a realistic landscape with your trees in the background, some grass, a parking spot for your tiny house, and this way clients can just understand what it would look like in a real life setting. Of course, you can do the same thing for the interior, so rather than placing the camera outside of the tiny house, you just place the camera on the inside and it would create a realistic render on the inside. And I'll just quickly show you a render that I've just created before as well for the interior. There we go. So that's a render that I have just created before for this tiny house in the interior as well. And what you'll see here, it has just put the camera into the interior with some realistic lighting that works well for the interior, and you can see the sun just streaming in here as well. To sum it up, 3D Tiny House Designer will help you design visually using a user-friendly 3D interface that will speed up your workflow and wow your clients. You will be able to design efficiently using purpose-built tiny house design tools to save 20 to 30 hours of work per project. You'll be able to create a library of staple design templates to speed up your personalized projects. You'll also be able to create detailed and accurate plans that you, your clients, your team, manufacturers and subcontractors can easily understand. You'll also be able to estimate materials automatically to speed up your quoting, pricing and ordering process. And you'll be able to create realistic renders with a click without becoming a render artist to market your staple designs and wow your clients. So, if you'd like to take the next steps, I want to ensure that trying 3D Tiny House Designer Business is risk-free for you and works well with your business use case and size. To try 3D Tiny House Designer Business, you can either apply online via our form where you'll tell us a little bit about your business, or you can book a discovery call with us where you and I can talk directly to answer any questions you might have. Both ways I can assess whether 3D Tiny House Designer Business is a good fit for you, and if yes, I will send you access to a 2-month discounted trial at just $49 a month for the first 2 months, as well as an ongoing subscription plan that's tailored to your business. You can of course cancel your trial and subscription anytime if you see it's not a right fit for you. The trial contains all the features without any limitations and multiple design slots, so you can see for yourself how the 3D Tiny House Designer can work for your tiny house business. We will of course help you get started with bite-sized videos that explain every tool on the software. And once you've had a few weeks to try out the software on your first projects, we offer a free one-on-one training session in which I will talk to you about your experience, review your first projects, and give you personalized feedback to further set up the most efficient workflow moving forward. So get started today and apply now or book a discovery call. I can't wait to hear from you.